The idea behind the Checkin' In podcast is twofold. First, we are Rhonda and Amy, two bankers in North Andover with some useful information on personal and business banking, lending, and cool technologies and payment methods. Second, we are part of the North Andover community where there are a lot of small businesses that we would like to check in with and highlight their specialties. Welcome to the very first episode of the Checkin' In podcast with Amy and Rhonda. We are here at the CAM Studios in North Andover, Massachusetts, and really excited to be here. As we said in the introduction, we're a couple of bankers, and we've got some interesting banking information to share, and hopefully we'll provide a little bit of entertainment as well. I am going to turn the mic over to Rhonda to tell you about the topic of today.
Thanks, Amy. So as we approach summer, there are many kids out there graduating from school and taking on summer jobs, whether they're babysitting, scooping ice cream, working in an office, really doesn't matter. They're going to be wanting to make money. So with that being said, they need to know how to save the money and do it the right way. So it's a good time to talk to kids about banking. We work in a bank, and people always ask us, when should I start a savings account for my child? What's a good age? And I would say probably around the age of 8 or so, letting them know how important it is and letting them be really aware of how to save money and, teaching them what to do when they go into a bank.
Yes. You know what? I think the parents that sort of raise the most financially literate kids are the ones that engage them at an early age. And like Rhonda said, you bring your child in with their money, you have them fill out the deposit slip themselves, go up to the counter, make the deposit with the teller, and really get to understand that they're putting the money in the bank, and they look at their balance and they feel comfortable in a bank and so on. So that's specifically a savings account, because a little kid when they're 8 should not have access to a debit card. So hopefully over time, they understand how to save, and if they have something really special they want to buy, you can take them to the bank and they can make the withdrawal. But this is just a way of making them, again, a little bit financially literate to understand the value of money. Now, we also get the question often, can I give my kid a debit card? Or when should I open a checking account for them? So, Rhonda, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, with my own experience and my 2 sons, they started a checking account when they were freshmen in high school. I thought that was a good age to get them started, although they had savings accounts prior to that. As far as checking accounts, they started them as a freshman in high school, and I basically showed them what to do and how to do it, and I was on the account with them, which I think is very important at that age, so you make sure that your kids aren't spending money on crazy things, and when they do spend the money, making sure that they have the money to spend. So I would say for a checking account and a debit card, freshman in high school, yeah, I think that's a good age.
I think that's pretty much what we did for my kids. I mean, I think of the whole idea of them having a checking account with a debit card is less so for the checks, because teenagers are not going to be writing checks. They don't have bills. But it's to start having them understand, again, the value of money. You mow a lawn, you earn a certain amount of money, you put it in the bank. If you want to purchase something, you thoughtfully go to the bank, withdraw the money, and make the payment. With debit cards, it gets a little bit tricky because there's easy access to the money, but a kid has to learn how to manage making purchases with a debit card and keep track of the balances in their account. So I think it's really important to start the kid out when they're, again, a freshman, sophomore in high school, when they're under your roof, and you can actually help model the good behavior and make sure that they have good spending habits, and that they're responsible before they go off into the real world working or off to college or whatever. So one of the neat things that has come along in the last few years, the last several years, is online banking, mobile app. So as far as keeping track of accounts, how do you usually tell, the parents to help their children, and how often should they be checking their balances and so on?
Well, excuse me. I'm one of those people that checks my balance every single day. And I always tell my kids, always check your balance, because there's been times when, being on their accounts, I'll go in and I'll check their balances and they're in the negative. And, I'll call them and say, what is going on? Why are you in the negative? And they're like, oh, I am. So that's when the savings account is good to have linked to the checking, where they can maybe transfer a little bit of money into the checking to help them with that. But they have to realize that there are fees that come with that. So if you overdraft, there's a $35 fee. And if you transfer money from your savings to your checking more than 6 times a month, there's a $9 or a $6 fee. Depends on the bank. So now they're not only taking money from their savings, but they have to take double the amount. So if they're short $30, but they're getting charged a $35 fee, now they have to transfer, $65 for a little $1, going in the negative by $1 is costing them $60. So they have to understand that there's, circumstances where they have to be very, very careful.
That brings up a really good point about savings accounts and checking accounts, and whether a teenager should have a savings account. So there is a federal law that a lot of people don't know about that actually says you can only make 6 transfers per month between or out of a savings account or into a savings account electronically. I'm not sure what the rationale is, but I believe it's because savings are supposed to be for just that. You leave the money alone. One of the issues that kids sometimes have is they're trying to save. So they stick most of their money in their savings account and just a little in their checking account. Week into the month, they realize they need more money because they're going out to the mall, so they transfer from the savings to the checking. A few days goes by, they want to purchase something else, they do another transfer, again, online. Before you know it, they've transferred over 6 times, and they're being charged that fee that you talked about.
Whether it's 6 or 9, some banks, every bank is different.
Right. So what I generally tell parents is only have your kid open a savings account if in fact they are going to be saving the money and leaving it there, or be very specific with them that that is what it's for. It's not to transfer back and forth. So maybe you start out your kid with a checking with access to a debit card, make sure they're monitoring their balances well, they're responsible, and then maybe start saving once they're sort of versed at it and know what they're doing. What do you think?
Or you have both and you just don't link the savings to the checking. That way they cannot transfer the money.
I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
I
know all the tricks.
I was going to say that's probably what you did with your kids after a while.
No, I didn't, but I thought of it after.
All right. Well, are there a few other things that we should add before we tie this up?
Just teaching your child the responsibility of learning to save. And, I had a mom one day who called and said, my son's account is in the negative and he got charged a $35 fee. And I said, okay, do you want me to transfer money from your account into his account so it doesn't? And she said, nope, let him learn. And it's kind of tough love, but if they learn a couple of times not to do that, then I think it'll get sunk into their head to really, really, really be aware and be really careful. And I tell kids all the time when they open accounts, make sure you look at your account, download the app to your phone, look at that account every week when you get paid or every other day, just to make sure you have the money in there for what it is you want to do. It's not a credit card, it's a debit card. That money is there for you to spend, but it's not unlimited. It's only what you put in there is what you have to spend. So
you know what? That's a really good point. And I always make the point of saying, like, this is a big financial step for you to have an account, and it's a responsibility. And you have mobile app, you have online banking, you have the ATM, all places where you can check your balance. And so, there's no excuse just saying, oh, well, I overdrew, but I didn't know. I mean, this is the real world. And when you have an account as a student, really, you're starting your financial responsibility. So at any rate, I think hopefully we've shared some good tips and good information. And so I want to thank you for joining me today, Rhonda.
Of course.
And I look forward to our next one. We are going to be talking to a local business. We haven't chosen the business yet, but there are so many awesome businesses that have interesting things going on in the town of North Andover. We wanted to thank the team at North Andover CAM for setting us up with this. They're sitting here painfully listening to us try to maneuver these mics and so on. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.